Welcome to Powering the Future. In this episode, we focus on the vital role policy plays in shaping Namibia's resource sectors. From the well-established frameworks that have guided our mining industry to the emerging policies driving growth in oil, gas, and green hydrogen, Namibia's policy environment is paving the way for sustainable development and investment. Join us today as we unpack the balance between progress, responsibility, and innovation that defines our country's approach to resource management. Today, I am joined by two guests, very important guests, to try and unpack the issues around the policy environment around the mining sector and also the energy sector, especially the energy sector now that we know that is really, in a way, an emerging sector, but a very, very important sector. So my two guests are Ms. Zenzi Awasis, who is the president of Women in Mining in Africa, and also the president of Women in Mining Association of Namibia. So, Madam President, I don't know now which president is more important, the African one or the Namibian one, but we are happy to have you as one of our guests. And we're also joined by Professor Zimvai Chinguvare, who's the acting director of the Namibian Green Hydrogen Institute from the University of Namibia. So, Madam President and Professor, we are really, really happy to have you.
Thank you.
We all know Namibia, for the longest of time, probably have been defined as a mining sector, because the mining sector have really played a very critical role over the years. We also now see on the horizon that the energy sector is starting to play a very, very important role in our economy. Not only, normally when people think about energy, they think about electricity, which is probably what is mostly known by all of us because we all use electricity. But there are other energies that not necessarily have to drive the economy. We talk about oil discovery, for example, now. We also talk about green hydrogen. Those are all energy sources, and they're really also now starting to define our economy as an energy-driven kind of an economy. Now, when you have got now those, the mining sector on the one hand, and then the energy on the other hand, the policy environment within which now these are happening start really playing a very, very critical role. And therefore, we need to continuously scan the environment and see whether now these two important sectors are the environment still relevant in such a way that they can really have an impact on the people, on the economy? Or do we need to start to think about looking at the environment space and figure out how maybe we need to tweak here and there? So you cannot probably just continue to think it's just going to happen, even if it's been there. But you need to always look at what can change, and the new one, of course, you need to think about all sorts of things. So, Zenzi, where you stand, especially now, probably more on the mining sector, but even on the energy sector, how do you see our environment, and how conducive is that environment for what we really want to hope to get from these two sectors?
Honorable, thank you first of all for this invitation, and again, kudos to the ministry for hosting an event, a show like this. I don't think we should look at them as two separate sectors, because the energy sector cannot be without the mining sector. Mining sector as sort of dictates, and as we've been doing it for a while, the environment, or rather the policy environment, has been set already. So though it is true, we require new policies, or is the question really new, or should we just tweak it? Perhaps some of them should be adjusted to talk to where we are going as a country with the new fines. And Prof, I think you'll agree with me when I say that the fines are not new, completely new. They've been around for a while.
It's true.
So it's the environment is conducive. It's a matter of, are we in tune with it? As we say, the industry is evolving. Are we evolving with it?
Mm-hmm. Prof, what are your take?
Yeah.
the environment, and everybody look at the environment differently. And as you just say, it's not one thing. There are so many things which impact the environment. But from where you stand, how do you view the environment within which these two sectors are taking place?
Yeah, it's quite interesting because the traditional knowledge that we have of energy was coming from burning coal, petrol, diesel, natural fossil fuels. But now we are using so much solar energy, photovoltaics, that is the solar cells that we use to generate electricity. We have other renewable energy sources that are not used so much in Namibia. And now we are talking of green hydrogen. And energy is basically needed by every sector of the economy and by every human being or living organism. And this is a fact since centuries, since existence started. But when you look at the new things that are happening in Namibia, which include new discoveries, let's say of oil and gas, and the scales at which we want to work on green hydrogen, we see that there might be need to adjust here and there to cater for the new introductions. But the good thing is Namibia already has a national energy institute, national energy policy, and a national green I'm so used to green hydrogen now. National renewable energy policy, and these two are really the basis upon which you can build.
Mm-hmm. But I think in Namibia, the biggest issue you hear when people talk about mining and now also energy sectors relating to the policy environment is this. Yes, you keep talking about we have got mining and we got some of the minerals that the world need. Now we got oil. Well, although, let me say, there's a discovery. Let's be careful because we haven't actually started production yet. Some people think we're already actually producing oil. We're not producing oil yet. But we're really on the journey where we are going to do that. The question normally is the policy environment has to be such that the people would need to believe that this sectors will have an impact on my life, a positive impact on my life. On the other side, you also need to make sure that the investors will say, yes, I still going to be able to invest in them because I can still make a return on my investment. And all those two are impacted by the policy environment that you have got. So regarding the impact which these two sectors will have on the Namibian people, you clearly hear the voice that says, for the longest of time, we don't think this, especially the mining sector that has been there, we don't really think it's really having the full impact on our livelihood the way we thought we should have got. And therefore, yeah, maybe there is there, but is there a need maybe for us to change the environment such that we all start to feel that, look, this thing, it means something to us? Or it's a matter of maybe not people understanding how that impact their life. But certainly there's a view that says the policy environment is not good enough in terms of what we get out of this. What would you have to say on that? And I'm sure you also talk to people who feel like, no, this thing is it's just for a few people who are getting it. We don't know where this is going.
I feel that's the part that needs to be tweaked.
Yeah.
We spoke about the policies being there and ready, and we've been mining for over 400 years, but the policies, that's the part that needs to be tweaked, and it's a part where I keep on referring to them as the local stakeholder, the internal stakeholder, has to see the tangible benefits that the industries show them. I always ask the question, do we know why we mine? Do we know why these natural resources or the mineral resources are in the ground? And at the end of the day, the answer really is that the mineral resources are in the ground, natural even. I mean, the resources have been given to us so that it has an economic transformation. And so when we speak about investment, and so the policy has to be written in such a way that it is a win-win for both stakeholders. So it has to translate into local beneficiation, local benefits to the people.
Yeah. Bro?
Yeah.
Take on that?
Yes,
What can we do to people to feel that we are all benefiting from this?
Okay, I will start with my philosophy about food and thermal comfort.
Right.
That's what everybody needs. We don't want to feel too hot or too cold, and we don't want to feel hungry. If we have a population that is hungry, they will feel like our government is not doing for us what it should be doing. Policies are not addressing our needs. If because we now introduce mining and we mine certain minerals or certain oil and gas when we get to it, and if this translates into the stomach of that person who was hungry, and now they eat and are satisfied, they will all be very happy. In the same manner, green hydrogen should translate ultimately to food and thermal comfort for the Namibian nation, not just for the investors, because they get their food and thermal comfort from the profits that they will make from it, but we want local content that is relevant to the Namibian. I always think the person that we should look at is a person who does not know that we exist. And when they can smile because of our work, then our policies are working very well.
Yeah. In the people you talk to, if we all agree then that there's probably a view that the policy environment is not good enough in terms of how we all benefit from it. Maybe the policy might be more slanted towards the investor and maybe not to the people who are the owners of some of these resources. In the secular way you move, when the people says we don't feel the benefits, what do they actually mean? What do you think they mean? Do they mean that I can only feel that I am part of this when I'm personally involved or when I'm personally getting something directly, and then I can say this is the way I feel, or what? How do you really think people are actually meaning? Because if we don't also understand exactly what people mean, whatever policy tweaking we are going to make, it may not really satisfy that thing because we never really clearly understood what people mean when they say we don't feel the impact for this or the other sectors. But what do you think people really mean? I'm not involved. I don't get it. Is that because I don't get something dug in my pocket, or just because generally, what is it? And I understand the local content, and we're going to talk about that as well. Yeah.
Honorable, allow me to use an illustration
Yeah.
to answer to try and answer that question. Imagine a household. In a household, you've got parents, you've got children. Let's say they've got 4 children in the house, a boy and a girl, and one is disabled, for argument's sake. The parents go out to go and work, and whatever money they bring into the house is to benefit and should be shared equally amongst his children. Now, the government in this case, or the policymakers in this case, are the parents. The work that they go and do are the investors, or whether, wherever they're working. Now, when they go and it has to change, whatever environment has to change as the children are growing up, or as the needs of the household are changing as well. When they added the second child, it was bigger. When the money comes in and the one child is not getting the benefit of what the parents are bringing in, that child will feel left out. What is then the purpose of the parents having this household and having them gone to work? The question of we are not getting enough is just that the people, most of them I speak to in any case, or the groups I engage with in any case, feel that the economic benefit of the industries are not felt across the board. I use the example of myself. I grew up in a small town called Arandas where we're mining uranium during the 70s. And that mining company, Rossing then, used to fly in teachers from outside. So we had a private schooling education back then already, from creche level all the way to high school. This company then also established institutions across, I think in Windhoek, that really played to what they want to do, what they meant to do as a company. When that Rossing left, the town became a ghost town. I always say if that model could be then replicated across the country, because that is the win-win scenario we're talking about. We have the resource, the investors came in, they mined it, but at the same time they played out what what's the word? They gave back
So, yeah.
the community, but more meaningfully. Everybody got what they needed, but only that little town benefited. The country as a whole didn't benefit.
Yeah. And I think that's that analogy of a parent who goes out and work and then bring money home, and the children in the house must feel that they're equally taken care of. The children probably will not really mind, will not necessarily really say, well, my parent got this money from this work or that work. As long whatever came in, it took care of us equally. And then we feel that we're taken care of. But if you look at the total income that we get, we're taken care of. That's I think what we need to do now. Whatever we're getting out, and we're trying to get as much as we can go. But it's how then do we distribute to what you got in such a way then that everybody feel like we have been taken care of. Prof, do you want to add anything on that?
Yeah, my thoughts initially, I'll first address the first question that was also addressed just now. Perhaps people know and we have heard about what is referred as the resource curse of Africa. Africa is very much blessed with the natural resources. And unfortunately for us, we only notice that these are resources when people from outside Africa come and they notice that, oh, you're sitting on diamond, or you're sitting on gold, you have a lot of sun and wind, which we need and we can convert into green hydrogen and take to our country. And then normally, if policy does not take into account that, yes, come, invest, generate the revenue, you collect the gold that you need, collect the copper, collect the uranium. But when we get the money, let us spend it inside Namibia. In many cases, people take the money and spend it outside Namibia. And if you are a father and you are working and you get a salary, you come home and you use 5% of the money that you earn and the rest you eat it somewhere outside. That is a problem. So when we come to this local content issue, I continue to talk about local content because that's where we are talking about our children, about the children of Namibia. There's a word that is referred to as equitable. People think that when you say equitable distribution, we mean that if I have 5 children, I'm going to give each one $5, $5, $5, $5. But it does not work like that. These children are also working. Some are professors, some are miners, some are engineers, and some are cleaners. The equitable distribution means everyone should get their worth without any discrimination. And in the same manner, if people want to benefit, they should also know that they should work for it.
Yeah. But I think also that we need to probably to all agree that there is something wrong with our policy environment as a continent, as Namibia, when it comes to sectors like mining and now also with energy. The fact that we have got all these resources, but over the years, the local content, the way you talk about, if that has happened, we'll probably have seen some industry that have developed on the back of the mining or in the back of the energy because of the local content. Because local content simply means that you need to provide the services that must go into that sector, whether it's research and development, because all this is about researching, what minerals can, what can it do, but if that is done outside. So something definitely wrong with that policy environment. And probably that's why people generally would believe that, the policy environment is such that the investors that we need, and there's no way you can do it without investor, but somehow we feel that maybe we aren't really the investors who are getting more out of this than what we are getting out of it. How should we address that? And I know, the investors will probably say, look, everybody wants to say, we want to have a conducive environment, which I all agree. You must have, if you got contract, they must contract sanctity. You know, if you can't be changing your laws and every other year, because now I don't know if I invest today how it's gonna be look like tomorrow. But are we negotiating good enough to say that, look, whether it's now local content or just what we get out of it, and how our policy environment could change? And you should probably you could probably say, well, you are the policy maker, you tell me, but I want you to hear from you. Because with the way you sit out there, you look at me like hey, what are you guys doing? I mean, you could do this and this and this and this. And I also know probably people are lucky to talk to you freely. They might not come to this minister and say, but minister, here you're not doing well. Do this and this and that. How do you see on that? How we treat the investors who says we want a very conducive environment, which I agree, but how conducive is conducive?
Right.
And it's conducive for who?
I love that. Conducive for who?
Yep.
And that's just it. Coming back to my analogy of the household. As children in the house, we trust our parents to I mean, it's a given,
Yeah.
right? So again, policymakers, you're the parents, custodians of this in the ministries, etc. The answer comes down to you need a data-driven approach. When you come in household, when you draw up your budget, you draw up the budget according to the needs of the household. So you understand from, in this case, in the house, you would observe, what schools must go to, etc. And as I feel, and I love the fact that you said the continent, because it's not a Namibia only problem, it's a continent-wide problem. And I wonder if it's not a whole regional problem, so global south in total. We need to sit down as Africans, as a nation, and actually sit down and ask ourselves, what are our needs 10, 15 years from now? I asked the question, do we really think that Global North just woke up yesterday and said they need critical raw materials in 2024? No. They sat and they had research done, etc., etc. So for you to adjust, and we all agree sitting here in this fantastic launch of the MME, that is the part that needs to be tweaked. It's the local content part that must be tweaked. The policies are perfect, but that's the part where people must start feeling the benefit. Ask ourselves, what are the needs of the nation? Again, using the Aranda's example, I don't think it was a mandatory thing. It was a CSR initiative that came out of what they wanted to do. But imagine if that was a must-do.
Not an optional
Not
thing.
an optional thing, but a mandatory thing. We will have a much better looking Namibia, or much better looking Africa, where education is key, where just a normal community is uplifted purely because they are mining in that area that we live.
Yeah. Would you also probably also agree then? Again, go back to the analogy of the parent and the kids. It should be my responsibility then also as a parent to make sure that my kids will not continue just to sit and wait for the parents to bring the money.
Of course.
I need to prepare them to be able to be the one to go and make that money.
Yes.
And hence the local content. If you want local business people to get involved into the local content, we also need not only have, like now in the oil and gas sector, we do have a local content policy that actually cabinet has already agreed to. We want to make that not just as you say, it must be a must, not just you do it when we want, but you have to do that. You're allowed to do that. But the policy should also provide for some sort of deliberate measures to enable then the children, the Namibian, to be able to take advantage of that. If you don't do that, also that I think, and therefore in that respect, how do you see sort of measures that you think should be part of the policy to make sure that this local content is going to work? Because it's one thing to say, we've got local content policy and then eventually law, and we know that there are other countries that have had this for a while. Nigeria has got a local content policy, but if you go there, I don't think they think it's working. So is Angola. They also probably, it's work in progress. Prof, where you sit, what sort of policy measures do you really think we should really critically think about that can make that local content policy to work?
Yeah, my thinking is, like you said, we need to plan forward, not 5 years, 10 years. Let's think 100 years. And if we think in that format, let us not think of local content as just the small thing that we We want these countries of ours to industrialize also. We want also to export manufactured goods from the resources that we have within our countries. Why these resources are needed elsewhere is because these people are adding value, but we are not adding value. So we need to educate ourselves, because many times I have asked people, when people mine vanadium and take it out of the country, what do they do with it? Or when people are mining diamond, when you have Marine and all these companies, that what do the people who buy diamond do with it? Why is it so expensive? And people think diamond is just for rings and necklaces in Namibia. Those are the people that I've asked. And as people want gold so much, what do they do with it? But people here do not have an idea what is gold used for. They think it's just rings.
Mm-hmm. But do you think that is a policy issue? I mean, when people don't get to that to think like what do people do with diamonds or with gold, and therefore we prepare ourselves in the long run what we want to do with that. Do you think that is a lack of policy clarity or policy measure that can make people to understand that's how we should do?
Education.
It's education.
Yeah. Skills building, and the philosophy behind education. The third world is trained to be workers for the first world. And we have kept our education exactly in the same manner for hundreds of years. We have not changed our education to say, hey, you are a Namibian, you are going to be the employer.
Yeah, but I want to challenge you on that one. This thing of education and skills, we want to make sure, we aren't doing this because we don't have the skills. I'm not so sure that's really right. Correct. Most of the people who are involved in the mining sector or in the energy sectors, they've been trained not only locally, but even sometimes abroad at universities where the investors who come here, they've been trained. So they more or less have got the same kind of education. And therefore, I'm not really so sure whether that's the training in itself. But maybe just when people come back now with that training, what policy environment do they find? Is that a supportive environment that will make them to act and think the same way other people do act and think? I really think that's probably where. That's why I'm asking. I wonder what else are we not doing to make them sure that the people with those skills, they find an environment that is conducive for them to be able then to do things and think the way other people think in terms of what gold can mean and what should happen.
Open up.
Yeah.
Open up, put a fund. Yeah. A fund that is like an innovation fund, for example, which allows personnel to actually be able to innovate and start new companies.
Yeah. I would probably agree, because those are now the measures that I'm saying, look, if you don't make it possible for people to then execute or implement some of these local content policies because you don't have the wherewithal with how you assist people to do that, and it always comes to money. We got this idea in terms of what we want to do as local content, but we don't have the money. And unfortunately, sometimes our financial institutions aren't always in that space. It's always like, it's too risky, you can't do that. And therefore, it will make sense, as you say, probably to say, look, do we have maybe a fund which can then, as long as there must criteria to be used, how do you access that fund if you have what? But it's a really very important thing, I think, to make this environment conducive for not only for others, but definitely for our people, to make sure that we are part of that. So I think we have come to a conclusion for this episode. I'm really happy that that's some of the views that you have expressed. And also just to invite you to say, look, you occupy certain positions where, as private Namibians, you really see things the way you think policymakers should behave. And we welcome all the ideas that as you come across and you scan the environment, and please let us know where we can improve to make sure that at least the energy sector, the mining sector, is seen as such that it's actually having positive impact on the Namibian people, and for not only for now but also for the next generation to come. So thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for the invitation.